Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Classic Arcade Repairs. Today, I have a Tron board set out on the bench, and pardon the furnace, it just kicked on, so it's a little loud. What I have done to this one is I went ahead and I dumped all of the ROM chips, verified all of the software is good, no bad chips. I don't know about RAM. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get my Inquisitor out. I'm going to test all of the RAM chips. And then we can hook it up and go from there. I did, when I had my programmer out, every time I get an MCR board game, I try to dump the PAL chips off of the CPU board. And I have successfully, of these 5 chips, I've successfully dumped this one, this one, this one, and this one. This is the only one that I have not been able to dump yet. How it is on these boards, and when Midway had these programmed, or they programmed them, or whatever, most of the time the security fuses are blown, so you can't read them. It just comes back random garbage or just zeros, empty, whatever. But every now and again you find one where it wasn't protected. And this was the case with this one today. This guy, these two have been the elusive ones, the 20X10s. They've been the elusive ones for me, and I've got this one today. So now all I need to do is find this one. And that's going to be like a needle in a haystack. But every time I get an MCR board, I try dumping these pals. So, yeah, I'm very happy I got this one today. And that's on my Patreon page. I actually updated my MCR PAL file on Patreon. I add them to that and I upload them. Kind of my online cloud thing where I keep all my stuff. I use it as just a storage server, basically. But, yeah. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to test all of these RAM chips. And yeah, go from there. See where we're at. Then we'll be ready to hook it up and fire it up. So I think before I hook it up and fire it up, though, I probably will get under the microscope and go through all of these, because there's always cracked and bad solder joints on these things. So I'll look at all of those. I'll do all of that maintenance before I even hook it up. Because what's the point, honestly? Go ahead and make sure all those connections are good. Resoldered. So, all right, I'll be back after a bit of maintenance. Okay, so I have it all hooked up. I went through and resoldered all of the cracked joints. Every connector had cracked joints, and that's standard with these. And there were cracked joints on the power input too. So that's all taken care of and cleaned up. I got this thing all hooked up now and ready to go. So let's go ahead and fire it up and see what it does. Okay, I heard the sound amp kick on. That's always a good sign. All of the RAM was good. And we're getting nothing. It's not running. Okay. Tisn't doing a thing. I do have these hooked up correctly, right? I'm sure I do. I double checked them. That is high, that is low. Low, high. High, low. Yeah, those are correct. Yeah, it's just not doing anything. We got a blank screen. So, I'll just get the logic probe out and start kind of poking around on this thing. We know all of the RAM is good. All of the ROMs are good. I need to check my voltages and stuff, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to go ahead off camera and just check my 5 volts, check all the voltages, the 12 volts coming through and everything. So just make sure that's all good. And then start poking around with the probe. Okay, I think I have verified that this thing has a bad Z80 at the very least. Because with the Z80 in it, you're getting this blank screen with a few little rhythmic pattern nonsense. I don't know if you can see it in the camera. So I'll go ahead and swap in a new Z80 and show you what that does. Okay, I just replaced the Z80 and now it just comes to this static screen where you got your MCR garbage on the side. Normally the MCR garbage is over in this corner, but I don't have the soundboard hooked up, so this is static garbage. The CPU is looking like it's trying to do something now, whereas before it just didn't do anything. I did swap this to this Z80 CTC chip with a new one, and that didn't make a difference, so I just wanted to eliminate that. Put the original one back in. It doesn't seem to be an issue. But now with that Z80 in, we got a good stable static screen. So now we can start poking around. I believe the Z80 is no good though, the one that was in it. So, and we'll revisit that once we do get this thing working properly. We'll revisit that. But so I'm going to go ahead and just start poking around some of the decoding stuff and the buffers and stuff like that. The driver, you know, the address drivers and that kind of stuff. See what we can see. Okay, so in a weird twist, I have no CPU in it right now, and it's got me that blue static screen. So this Z80 that I put in it was no good, because I've tried some of my other Z80 CPUs and it does that same white screen with the flashing rhythmic nonsense. So I think my CPU that I tried is no good, and the original one is fine. So I'm going to put the original one back in it and throw that one away, apparently. So yeah, this is another one that I tried of mine. I thought I might have had a bad Z80 in my stash, and apparently I do. So I'll put this one back in it and we'll move forward, because I was poking around with this thing and I was getting nothing out of the CPU. And I was like, this thing is just dead. And it turns out it is. The one that I had put in there was dead. It wasn't trying to do anything. So I'll put this one back in it and poke around. Should be getting more life out of that one. Okay, I'm going to explain how I got to where I'm at. I wanted to check and make sure that this RAM here was being accessed, because this thing is trying to run. You can see with the rhythmic nonsense, it's hard to see it in the camera, but this is doing a rhythmic reset. So I'm probing all of the chips to make sure. I actually removed all of these, made sure I didn't bend a leg, and then I'm just going around probing the enables and everything. And I came to this RAM and went to pin 18, which is 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. And I noticed pin 18 is never being enabled. So this, even when I reset this thing, so this is just not ever being enabled. And the decoding chip on this board is right here. It's this 138. So I got to probing on this guy. And these are the outputs, and they seem to be busy. And then this one's not busy. That's what? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Output 5 is never being enabled. output 6 is never being enabled. And output 7 is. So I was like, what? Output 6, what, 5? Output 5 and 6 are never being enabled. And this is never being enabled. So I bet you if you looked at the schematic, output either 5 or 6 from this thing enables this RAM, would be my guess. Or enables something with this RAM. Because I just went ahead and grabbed a 138 and jumped over that. And reset. There it is, it's running. So the problem is that 138. You can remove it. Once I remove it, it'll just quit. There it goes. Yeah. So I'll go ahead and swap out the 138 right there. And that should fix this board. Then we'll hook the other board up, make sure the sounds are all good and all that. Yeah, and just to prove that theory out, I got my poor man's comparator, jumped over it. It's basically the legs in question lifted. And if we probe this pin on the very end, you see it flashes. But if we go down to the leg on the chip in the board, it is high all the time. And if we go to the next one, you'll see that it is flashing every now and again. And the one on the board, if I can get there, is high all the time. So yeah, that was what was wrong with it. Yeah. So I'll go ahead and swap that guy out and we'll be good to go. One-handed. That was one-handed. Oh, I love this sound. Yeah, as you can see, it's working just fine. I have my cables on it. These are the cables that came with it. These things are cheesy. But, reset. Yeah. So I'll let this thing run and do its test like this with my cables on it. And then I'll put, when I put it together, I'll put those cables on it and make sure that they're not flaky. So I'm going to let this sit here and run for about 3 hours. And I'll come back once the run-in test is complete. And we'll put the board set together and throw those cables on it and make sure it's going to be okay. So, good enough. And you know what I'm going to do really quick before I head out of here? I'm going to test this Z80. This is the one that I had in my stash. I'm going to test that one and see if it works. Alright, just did the old swaparooski with the Z80, and that thing is dead as a doornail. Alright, so that one's going in the junk pile. I'll put the good one back in it and let it do its 3-hour run test. We'll see you after that. Alright, it has been 3 hours. This thing's been running for 3 hours, and it's fine and dandy, still going strong. I'm going to go ahead and set the camera on the tripod and play a game. And then we'll put the board stack all together and make sure it's still doing what it should. And kill the lights just a little bit. Okay. I'm going to hit reset. Yeah, it's still working great. And you know what I have? I forgot that I bought this. And I am going to wire this up so that I can do this. I bought this Tron spinner. So I'm actually going to wire this thing up. Yeah. So let me do that. I'm going to go ahead and put the board set back together the way it goes. And I'm going to make a wiring harness for that. And yeah, give that a shot. Alright, we got the stack put back together. The cables that come with it are put back on it. And it is, I had to replace a couple standoffs. I had to replace one of these and one of these. This is the one that was with it and was just broken. So I replaced those. Now all the standoffs are good. And it's working just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and wire up. I got to pull the wiring diagram, and I'm going to make a cable to connect the spinner. I'll actually be able to play Tron proper, maybe. We'll see. All right. I have my spinner wired up. We're doing tanks. I can spin my turret. So I still, you can't play it. It's not like it's on a control panel, but I can actually spin stuff now. I can test the spinning function. So yeah, excellent. So this board set is good to go. It's going to do it. That's going to do it for another. That's going to do it for another classic arcade repair. This one had a lot of maintenance on resoldering all of the PCB interconnect headers. It had a bad LS 138 decoding chip on the CPU board. I was able to dump one of the PAL chips. Was really cool. I've got 4 out of 5 successfully dumped now. I wired up my spinner. I bought this thing on eBay just for this purpose of being able to test these boards. Now, I've always used this one harness for MCR. I'm going to have to build other setups for other MCR games because this one is really Tron specific. So, yeah. Anyway, excellent. That is going to do it for this one, guys. Thanks for watching. Shout out to all my Patreon people. You know who you are. Appreciate it. And we'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.